DJ LeRoy.
NightWatchman, Monday evening and the place to be, New York City.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. So we have a chance to continue our series on education. We've had some really great educators, and right now we have the #1 educator in the country. I'm gonna say.
Really? Hold on. Are you telling me that can't be the New York City Schools Chancellor, could it?
Absolutely, absolutely. But you know what? I was saying he was #1 before he was the chancellor. I'm just gonna say I'm biased. You know, the things that he has done in terms of changing the game for education of young Black men, I think are incredible. We're talking about Mr. David Banks, of course, and we're bringing back a guest from Soul Lounge Primetime, one of our other education series, Dr. Sandy Johnson. That's right.
Wow. Then you know what, NightWatchman? As I say, let's get it popping. Please bring out Dr. Sandy Johnson, who I first met when she was actually conducting a nice forum over at the Harlem State Office Building, where we were talking about young people in STEM.
All right, very important.
Give it up. Where the applause? I want to hear some applause.
Okay, hold on. We got some applause for Dr. Johnson. Absolutely.
Yes.
Hello, Bob and Curtis. It's so good to be back on the show with you today, particularly since you have a friend of mine, the Chancellor, David Banks.
Absolutely. And that's what I said. You know what? We want to make sure that the Chancellor feels that this is family, that it's, comfortable. And remember, Malcolm often said, instead of giving me all these accolades and all that stuff, let's make it plain. So without further ado, let's bring out New York City School Chancellor David Banks. Yes.
Hey. I definitely feel like I'm with family. I know all of you, and particularly with my girl, Dr. Sandy Johnson. Thanks for having me this evening.
Absolutely. So you know what? Let's get it popping, Chancellor. So, coming from a family that stressed moral values and accountability, please tell us about your journey in education.
Well, I was a guy who I'm a product of the New York City public school system. I never intended to go into education at all. I graduated from college. What a lot of people may not know is that I was a school safety officer, actually, for 1 year. I worked at Clara Barton High School in Brooklyn before teaching. And I didn't go to school to become a teacher. I had never taken a teaching course in my life. I just started having my first child and decided that I needed to do something. And I figured I would teach for a short period of time. But I was teaching at an elementary school in Brooklyn and fell in love with it, and just continued to build my career from there. Went on to become a school administrator, and then ultimately, a principal. I was the founding principal of 2 different schools in New York, the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice, as well as the Eagle Academy for Young Men, both schools in the Bronx, and have worked really hard to try to impact the lives of just thousands of young people. It's a blessing to live a purpose-driven life, as they say. And I'm very clear about what my purpose is here, and that is to try to help transform the lives of young people and help them to be all that they're supposed to be. And that is what I've dedicated my life to, and that's what I continue to try to do. Why I'm excited about this new role as Chancellor, because I have an opportunity to impact the lives of every child across the entire city of New York. And if we do a good job here, as I expect that we will, we can also be a blueprint for the rest of the nation.
Excellent. And you know what, Dr. Johnson, you have a special connection to the Chancellor, in terms of both of you guys starting out as principals around the same time. So please tell us about that connection.
Well, first of all, I've known David for over 20 years as a beginning principal. And so I have watched him on his journey in education, and I'm just so happy that he is chancellor because he's a real authentic brother. He's very transparent. He doesn't compromise his vision or integrity of our kids. And he has done some great work at Eagle. And the work that we see in education, sometimes we look at it just at a specific point in that child's life. But clearly you could look at the students that David has been involved with over the years, where they are in college and where they are as an adult, and they are thriving. And they are thriving because of the foundation, the basic foundation that they were able to receive under his initiatives. So he brings hope. That's what we say. David Hope Banks. He brings hope where we've never had hope for over decades. And I think I don't want to say I think, I know he's also going to include those communities that have been marginalized over decades, that have been having the same failure conversations that will no longer be having. So I can't tell you the word in the neighborhood, because I'm in the neighborhood. The word in the neighborhood is thank God. Finally, someone who understands us and will make sure that all children get the same equitable resources in New York City.
Excellent, excellent. And you know what, Night Watchman, you also have a connection to the Chancellor. Please tell.
Well, I was privileged to be part of one of the first group of mentors for the first Eagle Academy in the Bronx. And so I want to talk about his history of cultural change, because I think one of the hallmarks of Eagle was him coming in and creating a culture change. So Eagle Academy was founded specifically for young Black men and young men of color, and creating a climate where they would, number one, see themselves in the staff and the teachers, and also to create one-on-one relationships with mentors who are not part of the school staff, but who worked with the school to basically make sure that they had role models that looked like them. And that was also supplanted by the parade of notables that they got a chance to see, whether it be the Tuskegee Airmen or Hillary Clinton, or I don't even know all the people who had come across and came to the Bronx and came to Eagle to basically spend time and show a vision of themselves to these young men in their formative years. So I think my question to the Chancellor is, given your history of cultural change, how do you translate that into now running the biggest school system in the nation, one that has a culture that goes back many, many years and maybe needs to be updated?
Oh no, it doesn't maybe need to be updated.
I was trying to be nice. Nobody got time for that, right?
Yeah, no. We have to have a fierce urgency of now, as King said. And I'm not even necessarily trying to be so nice. I'm genuinely a nice person, you know. But I tell people, don't let the smile fool you, right? No, we're deadly serious, and I have to be deadly serious on behalf of all of our children and their families and our communities. So everything that I do starts from a place of love and respect that I have for our communities. And I recognize that schools are part of communities. And I think for the last couple of decades, at least, we don't treat our schools like they're part of communities. As though they're almost just silos, and all we're supposed to be focused on is instruction, as though the people the barber, the guy who cuts the kid's hair across the street, like he doesn't matter, right? Or the person in the bank on the corner, in the bodega across the street, like we don't even have to even recognize what any of that is. We just have to do what we need to do in the building. Schools are part of communities, and you see the community, and you have to respect the community, and you have to help our kids to understand and appreciate and respect the community. Because if you don't, you may teach them certain subjects, But if they don't grow up with a healthy respect for their community, they will never feel a sense of obligation back to help their community. And it's a community that's making an investment in them. It doesn't matter to me that you go on and become successful and get a good job and a white picket fence if you don't reach back and help somebody in the community. If that's the way we do it, the community never improves. We young people having a part of that, their educational experience, an understanding of who they are and whose they are. And they are responsible to the upliftment of their community. That's what their education should be about in the first place. It's not to exist in a silo. And so there's a lot of work that you have to do to get a system as large as this to move like that. But you don't try to move it like an aircraft. You know, you want to move it in pieces. And that's within districts, within neighborhoods, as Dr. Johnson said, right? She's from the neighborhood. She's from District 5. So we got to have the right leadership in our districts, who then are going to work very, very closely with our school principals, who have to work very, very closely with the families. In the 2 months that I've been chancellor, it's the number one thing that I've heard has been from families, community members who feel disrespected, who feel like they've never been heard, they're never engaged. Policies get made, decisions get made, and then they just get informed, but they're not part of creating any of that. And so it's an authentic disrespect of community. I'm going to flip that on its head. I'm going to have the community engaged in the selection of the leaders who are going to be working in the communities. I'm going to engage the faith-based community. I'm going to engage the parents, the local elected officials. They are all part of the fabric of what community is, and I'm going to ensure that they all have a say. You know, we got thousands of neighborhoods around the city, and they're all very different. And that's what makes up the beauty of New York City. The whole world lives here, and it's great as Chancellor to go around and visit these different neighborhoods and see the different cultures. It's a wonderful, amazing honor to be a part of that kind of experience. But I want to honor them. I see them. I respect them. And I'm going to make sure that they are part of helping me to figure this out. This is not going to be the David Banks show. But we're going to bring hope to everybody and get everybody engaged in the game. Wow.
And Chancellor, I know you touched on it a bit in terms of education was not your first, let's say, the first thought that you had when actually entering the system.
Sure.
And knowing your father and your brother, how did you not go into law enforcement? How did that happen?
It's interesting. You know, my dad did 27 years on the NYPD, retired as a and my brother Philip, who's actually a year younger than me. Yeah, I'm the oldest of the three. My mom and dad had 3 boys.
Nice.
Oldest, and Philip is a year younger than me. He went to the NYPD. I actually tried to go into the NYPD. And you know why I didn't make it?
Why?
I couldn't pass the eye exam.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
Isn't that something? I was wearing glasses, and I went and took the test, and they told me, but take your glasses off and read the chart. I said, I can't read the chart if I take my glasses off.
Man, oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think the New York City school system is much, much better off with it.
Absolutely. So I've got a question for you. So you went from being a teacher who didn't want to be a teacher to becoming a principal, but now you're the CEO of a $38 billion organization. What are the unique challenges and opportunities you have as a result of that?
Well, certainly the opportunities are endless, right? As Dr. Johnson said, how do you bring a level of hope to all young people where they can fully believe in themselves and then manifest the potential that they all have? That to me is amazing. That young people, you know, I'm a member of the 100 Black Men, and our mantra is they will be what they see. It's hard for a young person to imagine becoming, you know, an astronaut if they've never met one, or being an investment banker if they've never met one. You know, if we want to make their dreams real, we've got to we've got to engage them with the people who can help demystify some of those processes and help them see what the possibilities look like for them at the end of the tunnel. For far too many kids, you know, Bob, who when you go and visit them in school and you sit next to them and you ask them, you know, what are they working on? They'll just tell you, I'm doing my work. Doing my work is code. That's code. That's code for I have no idea why I'm doing this. Right? I'm going through the motions of going to school. We have to do a much better job of that. And I intend to fully turn that on its head, because I think offering up kids career pathways where they understand that they have a chance to work in the fintech industry, biotech, you know, any of these emerging businesses that need young people, smart young people. Kids would be all over that if we were providing them that kind of insight and exposure. And that's what I intend to do. The challenges that lie before us are we're existing in a system. The biggest bureaucracy, maybe outside of the Pentagon, is the City Department of Education. It's a watch this, $38 billion annual budget. $38 billion.
Wow.
And yet 65% of Black and brown kids never learn to read at proficiency. Think about that.
Incredible.
With all the money. So the resources are not the biggest issue. The biggest issues are about there's a fundamental brokenness to our system. And what I'm realizing more and more is that to some degree, it's not broken at all. It was designed to be this way. There are a lot of people who feed off of the dysfunction of the system and have every interest in maintaining that as a status quo. There are a lot of people who send their own children to college on the backs of the dysfunction of this system. You think so? Because when you look around and you start looking at the various divisions and you say, okay, special education is broken. It's a disaster. Enrollment. As I'm looking, I'm saying, well, wait a minute. How can everything be broken? The most fundamental thing that we should be doing is teaching our kids how to read. You go to some poor countries around the world. They may be economically not well off, but kids know how to read. We're not even teaching our kids how to read. We're the most fundamental reason for even being in existence. And so you realize that who stands to benefit in a system like that? And that becomes the challenge. Those who would like to see the status quo remain the way that it is. That's the biggest challenge.
Wow. You know, I have a question for you, Dr. Johnson. I want both you and the Chancellor to weigh in on this. Of course, now, I went to public school, but my son, you know, he actually got one of the golden tickets. And when I say golden tickets, he went to a charter school. He went to Democracy Prep. So I need to really kind of get your thoughts on what do you think about charter schools and their effectiveness in terms of raising the bar in education? Dr. Johnson.
Well, first of all, there seems to be like this competition between charter and public. There shouldn't be any competition. Everyone should have a quality education program to go to within their community. And it shouldn't be either them or their. It should be a wide range of opportunities, not charter versus public. But I must say, and I have to say this as a community resident of District 5, our district has the most charter schools in our district per square foot than any other district in the United States. In the United States.
Wow.
We almost have more charter schools than public schools, which is impacting our enrollment. So there's a decline in the enrollment. My question to you and whoever is listening is, why is the concentration just in District 5 and not on the Upper West Side or the Upper East Side or in the Village? We have to ask ourselves that question.
Yes. Well, so, Chancellor, take it.
Yeah. I first of all, I believe in excellence wherever you can find is a great thing, and parents having opportunity and choice is a great thing. That being said, I think it has been unfortunate, this back and forth, this line in the sand and us versus them. The kids are the same kids, right? The families are the same families from the same neighborhoods. But there's this charter versus traditional public schools is a false narrative that's been set up by adults. And it's been a political football. However, I think the charters have lost some steam over the last several years.
Mm-hmm.
The demand for more charters has lessened very significantly. But I do believe in choice, and if you as a family believe this charter school is a better place for your child, listen. A lot of people have chosen charter schools simply because the neighborhood school has not been a good option.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have to be real about that, right?
Right.
And so people always will look to find the best options for their kids. When my mom and dad moved my family from Brooklyn to Queens, we moved to a middle class neighborhood in Southeast Queens, Cambria Heights. Everybody owns their own home.
Yep.
A lot of civil service workers. It was a great neighborhood.
Yes.
But the school in the neighborhood was horrible. Nobody wanted to go there. So my parents sent my brothers and I to middle school on the other side of Queens. It took us almost 2 hours every morning just to get to school. And I was in the 7th grade.
Yeah, wow.
But you do that because your parents don't want to sacrifice you to say, I'm going to send you to the local school if it's not a good school.
Right.
So what is my job? My job is to make sure that all of these schools are good quality schools. And you don't have to run away from those schools. Because at the end of the day in New York City, you can't charter your way out of this problem anyway. We have to make the traditional public schools high quality schools. That's what my job is. That's what I'm leaning into. That's what I'm going to do.
Gotcha.
Well, let me ask you this, just following on that. But you did have, obviously you had some very good experience at Eagle in terms of a charter school. So can you share with us some of the wins that you were able to bring forth in Eagle and how you might incorporate that into a larger context?
Well, let me first of all start out by making Eagle is not a charter school. None of the Eagles are charter schools.
Okay.
And that is a common error that people make. They think Eagle were charter schools. Why do they think it was charter schools? Because they see our kids in uniform. There's a level of discipline. We have programs. We run programs on Saturdays. We bring people in from the community. We do all of these extra things that have made the school a very special place. And people equate innovation, creativity, specialness with charter. And they think the traditional public schools don't have all of those extra things. And so we created Eagle Academies as traditional public schools. As we were intentional about doing that because we wanted to say that with a little extra attention, you could make a regular public school. They could be on par with any charter school. And that's what we did with Eagle. That's my point. I think with a little extra attention and the right supports and the right strategic supports, we can help lift the traditional public schools. The other thing that charter schools do a pretty good job of, and many of them do a phenomenal job, is how they market what they do. You tell the community. So all of a sudden, marketing is important, right? You tell people we're a great school. We want you to come. Families line up. We have traditional public schools that do amazing work, but we don't market. So nobody knows that you're doing amazing work. And so therefore they assume nothing good is going on. And then they make a beeline for a private school, a parochial school, or a charter school, because the New York City Department of Education has not done a good job of telling the public about the wonderful things that are actually happening in our schools. And when you do that, you get great parents and families who want to stay and be a part of your school, and you build your schools and you make them better by doing that. But if you don't tell anybody what you're doing, nobody knows about it. People think you're not doing a good job. They want to leave. Nobody wants to come. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. My job is to be the champion for the public school system, to make the schools better, but also to build trust with families and communities to help them understand that we are getting better and we need you to be a part of this. Over the last 5 years, we've had over 120,000 families who've left the New York City public schools. That's
Wow.
huge. 120,000 have
Wow.
left. And we've got to stem the tide on that. But we got to give people a reason to come back. And that's the work that I'm also leaning into.
Well, one of the things I definitely did hear was that you believe in choice. You definitely believe in choice. Now, with that, Dr. Johnson, you had mentioned that we are saturated in District 5 with charters. So, cap or no cap? Thoughts? Anyone?
Dr. Johnson, I don't know if you want to lean in on that first.
I can only relate to the district that I served, that I grew up in, that I'm a product of. And I think if you had to ask me to be transparent whether there should be a cap or no cap in District 5, I would have to say there has to be a cap.
Okay.
When you are on an airplane, when you're going on your vacation, let's say you're going to South Africa, and the plane only holds 75 people, then the airline can only sell 75 tickets. It can't sell 85 because 85 people want to go to South Africa at that time, on that day in that particular airplane. So yeah, I think there should be a cap for my district. I think we have enough.
And I would say this. I talk to charter school leaders all over the city. The question is not even whether or not I think it should be a cap or not. There's going to be a cap. There is a cap. And the cap is not going to be lifted. In order for the cap to be lifted, the state legislature would have to lift the cap. And there are not enough state legislators who believe that the cap should be lifted. I think that the charter school movement in many ways has already peaked. I think the charter school leaders around the city recognize that it has already peaked. Right now, they're not even arguing so much about lifting the cap as much as they're trying to get the other charter licenses that have been authorized for schools upstate that are not being used, and to say, can we use them, in New York City? But the political will to lift the charters, you don't hear people clamoring for charters like you did 7, 8, 10 years ago. It has peaked. What people are clamoring for is to say, you must improve these public schools that we have. And so we've got a lot of charter schools. There's several hundred charter schools. But the question now becomes, all right, how are we going to improve the traditional public school system? And so for somebody like Dr. Johnson, who's a Harlem girl and has done all her professional career, and she lives there, and people feel sometimes like it's been like almost like a hostile takeover, right? And that's real. And why can't we make our schools good schools? What is us from making our regular neighborhood schools really good schools? But that takes leadership, that takes vision, it takes resources, and it takes strategy. And I believe that's why I'm here now at this appointed time as chancellor, because I understand it, and I understand how the community has to be involved. I understand what high expectations are, and I understand what it takes to get there. And now I've just got to continue to build a team that is going to help us to get there. I've eliminated the executive superintendents, which was a position across the city where all of our superintendents reported to somebody above them, the executive superintendent. And we spent millions of dollars, and I don't think it was money well spent. Has nothing to do with the individual people. The executive superintendents themselves are phenomenal people, some of the best educators we have. But the position was an unnecessary position. What we do is to fortify the local superintendent, give them the resources that they need. They're the ones who work most closely with our schools. And then we have schools who do an amazing job. They don't even need the superintendent to get in their way. They know it. And we need to give them what they need to be autonomous and to also help their brother and sister schools to be better. Everybody works in silos. The whole system was designed in silos. And I'm trying to break down the walls of those silos. So folks are working across sector. The school up the block should have just as much interest as what's happening with the school around the corner. They should be connected. They should not just exist within the four walls like you don't care about what's going on around the corner. Those are not kids. They're all of our kids.
Yes.
All of our kids. So I'm going to get past all these divisions of the charter, the school up the block, that school. We're all one community. We have to work together as a community and solve the problems as a community. And I think Mayor Adams, that's been a big part of the message he's been saying. We can't continue to work in silos. If you do that, you can only be but so effective. But if you align, cross-purpose, then the sky's the limit.
Nice, nice. And you know what, Chancellor, and also Dr. Johnson, did you know that the Night Watchman's father is a graduate of Stuyvesant, as am I? Now, my question is, thoughts on the elimination or revision of that entrance exam for Stuyvesant, Science, Brooklyn Tech, all that stuff? Please share that with me.
David.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. I think, first of all, we're not going to change the admissions criteria. Okay. I think criteria is flawed, but the mayor and I have talked about this at length. So we're not going to change it. We are making plans to build a new specialized high schools as well.
Yes.
That we already have.
Congrats.
And those specialized schools will probably have a different set of admissions criteria, right? Here's the challenge, I think, right? I think this notion of a single exam is flawed on its face. But let me tell you why it's even more flawed now, in my opinion, is because in the past, when you went to school, Curtis, you were one of the smart kids from the neighborhood, everybody knew it. You went, you take the exam, you get a good score, and off you go to the specialized school. What you got now is if you were in the similar circumstance today, you probably would not get into the school. And here's why. Not that you're any less smart. If you look at Brooklyn Tech, several years ago, Brooklyn Tech was 50% Black and brown kids. Now, significantly less, well below 10%. What happened? Did the kids become less smart? People say, well, we need to improve what we're doing in our middle schools. That had nothing to do with it. The exam itself is a singular exam. The exam itself is not even tied to what you're studying in middle school. It's a standalone exam that's standardized to anything. So what you have are a lot of folks, particularly the Asian community, which has really thrown their lot into this space. And God bless them. I don't blame them. They've thrown their lot into this space, and they have their children studying for that exam.
Yes.
From the time that they're like 5 years old. Every day, all day. I think it's unfortunate. I think that anybody has to do all that just to prepare for one day for an exam. But, you know, that's if you've decided that's what you want to do and you want to throw your hat in that ring and just, you know, the challenge is a kid like Curtis today, who's the smart kid from the neighborhood, like he was when he went before. If Curtis comes along today, you are now going up against kids who have been studying for that exam forever.
Wow.
And you're competing against them. That wasn't the case when you were in school, Curtis. It's the case now. And then the exam is flawed. I'm going to tell you one other thing that most people have no idea about, because they say generally, take the exam, and whoever scores the highest in the exam gets in. That's fair, right? Let me tell you where it's not fair. Let me tell you this, because people don't even know this. The exam does not have just one central score. It's a math and it's an ELA exam. If you get 100 on the math and you get a 75 on the English, and then along comes Curtis Archer, takes the exam. And Curtis Archer gets a 95 on the math and a 95 in English. Who do you think gets in?
Wow.
No, I'm asking you. The 100 with math and the 75, or the kid that gets 2 95s? Who do you think gets in?
I'm saying 2 95s.
That would be the wrong answer.
Oh, really?
The kid who, if you get the 100, that's what's considered an anchor score. It pulls you in. You almost get automatic entry into the school.
Wow.
The kid with 2 95s, you will get in if there's room to get you in. So you have a lot of kids who figured out how to ace the math in particular and getting perfect scores in the math. So even if you don't even get close to a perfect score in ELA, it pushes you past. You get an automatic entry over the other. This is what I'm trying to tell you when I say it's a system that's been gained. And many people don't even understand it. They just say, improve the middle schools. The kids, black and brown kids, go to better middle schools and study more so that they, do better on the exam, because the exam in and of itself is just completely fair. It is not. It is not. We should know that. Most people don't know that.
Right.
But that's what it is. But I believe that we need to continue to improve our neighborhood schools, because again, we're only talking about a few thousand kids that go to the specialized schools. We spend a lot of time talking about it, but we got to improve Frederick Douglass. We got to improve Thurgood Marshall. We got to improve East Academy. Like, we've got to that's where most of the kids go. They don't go to the specialized schools. And we spend very little time talking about those schools. And we spend a lot of time talking about gifted and talented. There's only 2,600 gifted and talented seats in the whole city of New York. 1.1 million kids, 2,600 seats. But that's what you see in the paper every day. That's what specialized schools, gifted and talented. We can do so much better. And there's a reason, I think, why the narrative is spent. It's a scarcity model. And we have everybody at each other's throats over a handful of seats, where we need to be expanding that in a place as big as New York City. There's no reason in the world why we only have 2,600 gifted and talented seats in a program that's not even gifted and talented. Gifted and talented is just an accelerated learners program. That's all it is.
Right.
It's not. There's so many issues and challenges in this place and space. I'm telling you, man, and I'm trying to work through all of it to make sense of it and to make sure that we have a level of equity across the board, and everybody has a chance at achieving the American dream. That's what I want for everybody.
So you mentioned earlier that strategy was one of the components that you needed to address. Can you share with us what your initial strategy is to, it's like eating the elephant. You got to eat it one bite at a time.
That's right.
So what's your initial strategy in terms of jumping into these problems?
Let me offer you a couple of things. One is the mayor cannot be successful unless we bring crime down in New York City. Right? Parents are also very concerned because you're seeing on the news every day, weapons coming to school, kids are scared. Most of these issues with weapons are not because kids are afraid of issues in school or have problem or beef with people in school. They're afraid of what's going on in the community. The proliferation of guns is everywhere, and we should all be concerned, right? I mean, because not just kids that need to be concerned. You and I need to be concerned, all of us. When guns are just everywhere and those bullets start flying, they have nobody's name on it, right?
That's right. That's right.
So that needs to be a concern for all of us. But my job at the DOE is also to connect to that, because if I can help young people have a better sense of where they're going and not making choices to get involved with local gangs and picking up guns and being involved in confrontation, that's how I contribute to the crime decline. Help young people have a greater degree of hope for themselves. And so I will tell you, part of the strategy, Bob, is where are the neighborhoods and where are the specific schools that we need to lean in? Like we don't need to lean in Bayside High School. Bayside High School is a great school. Great school, beautiful neighborhood. That, if you want to say we need to put extra resources and people in place, you're not going to Bayside High School. My point being, you have to hotspot this stuff. Where are the issues? Where are the challenges? You can't just say, I'm giving everybody the same thing. No, there's some neighborhoods that need more resources and more support. And that's what I mean when I talk about strategy. We have to be very strategic around where we're going to provide the additional supports to help those schools. Because every neighborhood, many of our neighborhoods, you take Harlem, District 5 has some places that have real challenge. We need more support. But that's not every school. Some of the schools in District 5 are some of the best in the city. They're doing work. They don't need all of the extra resources. And then even within the schools that need supports, it's not every kid. Sometimes you could pick 10 kids in a school. those are the 10 kids that will try to turn your school out, right, Sandy?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and every principal in the city knows the names of those kids off the top of their head. And they say, if you could help us with these 10 boys, or these 8 boys and these 2 girls, if you could help us with them, and we could turn them around and get them to believe in themselves and get them to stop running the streets and being in trouble, you would transform our whole school. That's when I talk about strategy, and that's where we're going. We're trying to drill down because we have credible messengers. We have organizations like 500 Men, Brotherhood Sister Soul here in Harlem, United Black Men of Queens. There's organizations that are all over the city, and we've been working with them. We know them. We're going to get those schools to come in. So it's not just getting more school safety officers. It's getting these brothers and sisters from the community who know the community to get them involved. That's how you change mindset. That's how you change culture. That's what I mean, Bob, when I talk about strategy. The second part of the strategy is you have to give kids a reason for being in school in the first place. And by on what we're calling career pathways. If you don't help kids understand the power of possibility, I had a meeting yesterday with Jamie Dimon, right? Chase. They're bringing in thousands of more apprenticeships that they're going to provide for our kids, right? And to be kids of color, who otherwise might never wind up as an investment banker, but they want those kids to see that they have the possibilities for these careers, and they're going to partner with us. Well, we're going to have, hopefully hundreds of these CEOs around the city who've also expressed interest in saying, we want to help these kids to become coders and to understand and develop the credentials that they need so that when they graduate from high school, they can go to college. And if they decide not to go to college, they can go right into the world of work with a really good job that'll put them on the path like to economic prosperity. That's what we're looking for. But if kids don't understand where they're going, they just go to school every day and then they're bored to death and they don't know why they're doing what we're doing. I have to help them make sense of the relevance of school and why school is important. And I have to help the adults, the teachers, understand it as well. Most of our teachers have no idea what it means to work at Microsoft. They've never stepped foot inside of Google and see how the employees work. So if you're trying to prepare young people for the 21st century economy, you as a teacher, as a principal, you have to have some sense of what the real world looks like yourself. How are you preparing kids if you don't even know?
Yeah, true.
So, David, there's also something I hear coming out of your comment, and that's partnership. And that's something that you started. Well, Eagle was started as a partnership, and let's give credit to 100 Black Men for some of the effort they had in founding Eagle. So tell me how you bring partnership into the New York City school system. And I think you shared a little bit of it, but tell me how far does that go?
I've hired a woman named Jay Grieve. She's my chief of career pathways. We're working with Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright, who's the Deputy Mayor for Strategic Initiatives. All this work that we're doing, we're fully aligned on creating partners. We're meeting on Monday morning with the mayor and over 100 major funders from around the city. It's being sponsored by the Robin Hood Foundation and Darren Walker at the Ford Foundation. All of these major players together to say, we have to turn the corner here in New York City. We have to help make New York City, we have to get New York City on the rebound. We have to be able to help our schools and provide opportunities for kids. So the first part of it, Bob, is you got to tell the people, we get it and we need you. We can't do this by ourselves. And a lot of times in the past, you've had people who've been in my position as chancellor who they don't move like that. They haven't spoken like that. It's just been about teachers and kids. But I'm here to open up a wider context on this and help people understand it's not just teachers and kids. It's teachers, kids, parents, families, and the real world, right? And if kids can get a sense of real possibilities for careers, and we can provide career exposure in elementary school all the way through middle school, and then get an opportunity, because kids, if you think that one day you can be a judge, if you think one day you might be a journalist, if you think one day you might be a U.S. senator, when you have that in your mind and in your consciousness, I don't have to tell you to not join a gang, to go, stay away from gangs. Don't pick up guns.
Yes.
Don't push somebody on the subway tracks. Like,
Yep.
I have to tell you that because you see the possibility for yourself. Kids who engage in negative behavior are kids who they're living like in darkness. They live from day to day. They don't see the possibilities. They're not any less smart than anybody else. There's nothing wrong with them. We as a system have not given them what they need to see the light. Because once you see the light, that's why it was important for the 100 Black men. That's why it was important for people like Bob to mentor, because it becomes an additional voice that can sit next to a kid and help them understand and come to their aha moment. You are somebody. You can be somebody. Here's some other things that your teachers might not have even shared with you that are possible for you. When that becomes real for a kid, they move differently. They move differently. And that's what we have to do as a system, where every kid has their aha moment and they get it. And then they can run toward power of possibilities for themselves. That's what the system should be doing. And that's what I intend to do.
Excellent.
And I'm going to have to get ready to, I can hang in for a minute, but I'm going to be moving, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Listen, you're always moving. Well, first of all, you got us excited. I want to go back. I want to go back to school now.
Well, and Dr. Johnson, in terms of what the Chancellor was saying in terms of these partnerships, has that also been one of your core beliefs too, in terms of education, seeing that certain resources come to the fold to support public education?
I don't think I would have been as successful at Thurgood Marshall Academy without the support of community partners, particularly Abyssinian Development Corporation. Schools can't do it all by themselves. Their budget doesn't allow them to do it by themselves. But as David said, we tend to work in silos. By bringing in the whole community, we're working collectively, as a neighborhood, as a family. I mean, we had kids that had traveled all over the world. We made sure that everyone had a career pathway, internships, and we could not have done that without our community partners. We have to bring them into our schools. And as David said, we have to tell our story. People only know what they know. But once they know it, everyone's willing to help. I don't think you will find anyone that'll say, "Oh, I don't want to help kids learn. I don't want to help, the schools get better." Everybody wants the same thing. We just got to figure out how we can get them around the same table, talking the same old, so that we can move our kids in the direction we want them to go.
That's right, Sandy.
Absolutely. And Chancellor, I know you're going to be continuing the good fight. And how has the mayor has been very, very supportive of your initiatives, and how did you, in terms of your relationships, begin with Mayor Adams?
The mayor and I go back, I don't know, maybe 30 years.
Wow.
He came up on the New York City Police Department, and as you know, I come from a family of my dad and my brothers in the NYPD, and so I've known Eric for a long time, from back when he was on the police department, and so we go back a long way, and we've been friends for a long time.
Beautiful. And you know what, Chancellor, I have one other thing. In terms of, let's say, we know that the DOE spends a lot of money to outside vendors. Okay, I want to know, has there been an initiative to increase the number of Black and Brown vendors that provide services to the Department of Education?
$38 billion, and we spend for the with Black-owned businesses 0.3%.
No.
0.3, and the Latino community 0.2.
Wow.
There's been a system that's been set up that's been designed to prevent Black and Brown folks from getting access to those real dollars, major contract dollars. We get access to almost none of it. I've hired a chief diversity officer whose whole job is to figure out how to break the walls on that. So we're going to be very, very focused. As one of my major priorities is to break the back that has prevented us from ensuring that all of our kids get access to the kind of dollars, and our families and businesses get access to the kind of dollars that are necessary.
Gotcha. Well, Night Watchman, how we doing, buddy? Talk to me.
Well, we're doing fine. I think, at any point, if we need to wrap this up, we can wrap it up. I think, number one, this has been obviously a great opportunity to hear directly from the Chancellor, not only his specific vision, but also his passion for doing this. I think that's incredible. And with the panels that we did with educators before, we all kind of knew that this is what we were getting, but it's even better to hear it in terms of specifics, what he wants to do. And my last question to Chancellor is your vision, if you're able to implement everything that you've got on the table, what do you think the impact is going to be on New York City as a whole?
It's going to completely transform New York City. We're going to, first of all, the theme is bright starts and bold futures. And so the bright starts is we're going to invest very significantly in early childhood education and essentially ensuring that every child in the city learns how to read well. There should be no child who cannot read by the end of the third grade, right? And so, and right now we have thousands and thousands of kids who don't learn how to read. And so, so major focus in that space, number one. And if you do that, that's establishing a foundation that all kids really do need. Secondly, it's bold futures, and that's putting our kids on a course where they understand what it means to have a real career, and not just going to school just to go to school. I want to put our high school kids in a position where some kids, can graduate from high school in, 2.5 years.
Wow.
Lock them in on 4 years. Be able to do and move along at their own pace. It shouldn't be one size fits all and everybody move as one huge block. That's unnecessary, particularly with technology today. And so ultimately, I want to see our kids revolutionize technology. Think about how fast the world has been changing, and what it would be like once Black and brown kids, right, like space, and bring that kind of change. It will be absolutely amazing. But I believe deeply in the city. I believe deeply in these kids I visit, Black, white, Asian. I mean, these kids are amazing. I'm getting ready to visit a school right now. And I visit these schools all over the city, and kids are just phenomenal. They're brilliant. They have the joy of life inside of their bodies. Our goal is to make sure that we maximize that, we build on that. Far too many kids, particularly Black and brown kids, they come in like that, and by the time they leave us, it's like we've beaten the joy out of their bodies.
Wow.
I want kids to love being part of a school experience, just like Sandy did Dr. Johnson when she was the principal at Thurgood Academy. It's a place. You build culture, and kids know they're in a place where they're loved and people care about them. And it's not just a specific subject, but it's people who love them and will take care of them and will help to ensure that they get where they need to go. Imagine if we had a Sandy Johnson in every school across the city. And we have some. We do have many of them. We don't have enough. My goal is to find more and make sure we're in front of kids and help give all of our kids everything that they deserve to get.
David, can you before you go, you have to tell them your story about when you were asked to be the commencement speaker at the college?
Oh, yeah. I sent 3 of my young men from Eagle Academy. At Eagle Academy, all of our young men recite the poem Invictus, right? Invictus, poem that Nelson Mandela recited.
Yep.
every day when he was locked up on Robbins Island. He said that's what kept him safe. Congressman John Lewis said it was his favorite poem, right? And so our young men at Eagle Academy, they recite that poem every day. It's a poem of resilience. That when the going gets tough, you got to dig down deeper and be an eagle and soar above it all. And so I sent 3 of our young men to a school in Boston. I sent my 3 of my kids to a school in Boston. And they went to a school called Wheelock College, right? And Wheelock College, the president of the college called me one day and said, "Listen, I just want you to know, black woman." And she said to me, "You sent me 3 of your boys. They've all graduated. They're about to graduate.
Beautiful.
And we want to give you an honorary doctorate for all the that you've done." Right?
Wow.
And I showed up on campus in that moment, and they brought me up on the stage. It's a packed auditorium, and as the president got ready to, give me this honorary doctorate, the 3 young men from Eagle Academy stood up at their graduation in the middle of over 3,000 people, said, "Out of the night that covers me, black is the pick from pole to pole. I think whatever gods may be." They recited Invictus. What they were doing in that moment, they were paying tribute to their Eagle experience.
Wow.
So you had us since we were like in the 6th grade. Now we're graduating from college. One of the young men went off to Africa. He joined the Peace Corps. Another one stayed in Boston and worked at a communications firm. And the third one, Ivan, he went to Purdue University in Indiana, and he pursued a master's PhD program, right? Like by every stretch, you'd say a huge success. These 3 guys from the Bronx, and here college graduation. Here's the final part of the story. We came back and we ran the numbers on each one of those 3 guys, and found out that each one of those 3 young men was considered, quote unquote, not college ready.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Right? By the DOE. Why? Because college readiness is purely measured by the score that you get on a math or ELA exam. This is what I'm trying to tell you. We screwed this up. We're missing the point. We don't know how to measure resilience. We don't know how to measure grit. We don't know how to measure a kid who's coming from a single parent family that's had it tough and has figured out how to overcome and to even get themselves into college. Nope, we put a scarlet letter. You didn't get the score on the exam. We don't think you got what it takes. And I'm telling you, there are kids all over this system who have what it takes. They just need a little bit of extra help. They need some folks to believe in them. And that's what Eagle Academy represented and represents still today for so many kids. I'm trying to help design a system where all of our kids have somebody in their lives that believes in them like that to give them what they need in spite of whatever score they happen to get on any particular exam.
Wow. NightWatchman, do your thing.
Yeah, well, I think no other words need to be said other than thank you, and I think we got to hit the applause button again. So you've been listening to Soul Lounge Primetime on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, or you might be watching us on YouTube or Facebook. If you're seeing this live, make sure you share this with people. People need to hear this interview and get excited about what's about to happen in New York City schools. Sit back, put your seatbelt on, because it's going to be an interesting ride. Thank you, Chancellor David Banks, for joining us on Soul Lounge Primetime.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Dr. Sandy Johnson, for joining us again.
Yes. All right. Take care, guys.
All right. Take good care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Hey,